Hi everyone, meet Phil. Phil is a journalist. A journalist is someone who gathers information to write a story. Journalists can write about many things, like sports, school events, and important things in the news. Phil is a journalist for his city's newspaper. He gathers information by interviewing people. This means he talks to people and asks them questions to learn about their opinions and experiences. Last week, Phil interviewed a woman named Tam. Tam recently moved from Vietnam. Phil wrote a story for the newspaper about Tam's new Vietnamese restaurant. Today, Phil is going to write an article for the newspaper about Veterans Day. Veterans Day is a holiday in America that is celebrated every year on November 11th. A veteran is someone who served in the military. Phil is interviewing his friend Karen, who is a veteran. Phil and Karen meet for the interview at a coffee shop. Phil gets out his iPad to take notes as Karen answers his questions. First, Phil asks Karen about her job in the military. Karen tells Phil that the military has 5 groups, called branches: the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, and the Coast Guard. Karen says that she was an airplane repairwoman for the Air Force. Karen tells Phil that she wanted to join the Air Force ever since she was a little girl. Karen also knew she wanted to work in the military because she wanted to help her country. Keeping American families safe was important to her. Next, Phil asks Karen what life was like in the military. Karen tells Phil that being in the military was not an easy job. She had to leave her family and travel around the United States. Some of her friends who were in other branches of the military, like the Marines, had to go to other countries. Even though the job was hard at times, Karen tells Phil that she's glad she served in the Air Force. She loved knowing that she was helping to keep people in her country safe. Lastly, Phil asks Karen how she celebrates Veterans Day. Karen tells Phil that she always calls Tammy, her friend from the Air Force, on Veterans Day. They talk about the good memories they had together while serving in the military. Sometimes Karen visits schools and talks to students on Veterans Day. She enjoys telling stories about the military and answering the students' questions. Karen tells Phil that her family takes her out for dinner on Veterans Day. This is their way of celebrating her service to America. Karen says it always makes her happy when people thank her for serving in America's military. It means a lot to her when people appreciate the time and care she put into her Air Force career. Phil thanks Karen for answering all of his questions. He asks if he can take her picture to go along with his story for the newspaper. Karen says yes and even wears her Air Force hat for the photo. Phil has finished gathering his information. Now it's time for him to start writing his story about Veterans Day. Now it's your turn to be a journalist. Let's go on an adventure.